Thank you everyone for joining. And today I want to cover the front-end system design. How we will be doing is going through a problem statement more because I think that is better. I can explain things to you because when I was preparing for interviews, I could get literally no content on the YouTube. This is everything is what I would tackle in the interviews.
So hello and welcome everyone. Hope you're keeping well and staying safe. This is Hafsanjum and I am working as a community executive at Recro, wherein we are working towards building an exclusive community for developers to help you get connected with like-minded people, build your network and grow professionally. So those who don't know about what Recro is, we are a developer-focused platform helping developers to meet the right opportunity by connecting them with the fast-growing startups such as PureFit, Swiggy, Udaan, Dunzo, etc. So welcome to Recro Talks again, and we are having a webinar on front-end system design. Our guest speaker for today is Ashima Ahuja. Ashima is a front-end content creator and a senior front-end engineer working in Micro Amsterdam. Before, she worked with Booking.com for 3.5 years as a front-end engineer and primarily working with Vanilla.js, React, and TypeScript. Thank you so much, Ashima, for joining us. You may go ahead and say hi to the audience.
Yeah, it's Miro, not Miro. Yeah, somebody posted in the channel. Thank you everyone for joining. And today I want to cover the front-end system design. How we will be doing is going through a problem statement more because I think that this is better. I can explain things to you because when I was preparing for interviews, I could get literally no content on the YouTube. So I want to help everyone, and this is everything is what I would tackle in the interviews. You might have a different approach, so don't take it as like this is the only solution, because in system design we don't have any right or wrong answer, but there are too many wrong answers. People say there are no wrong answers, but there are very wrong answers as well sometimes. But so just follow the pattern, those things that you should talk about, and you can always go with your own solution. So I'll just start sharing my screen and we can, without wasting any time, let's start. So first we will have a general introduction. Then we will be talking about how to approach a system design question with the help of an example. And we will also cover some of the follow-up questions which are often asked by the interviewers. Okay, so in front-end system design, usually we have two types of questions. So one is the product design, which we also call high-level design. So this will be mostly around bigger problems. For instance, build a product like YouTube, build Netflix, Facebook, WhatsApp. So these are very broad level questions. But then we also have a low-level design, component design, and mostly till 5 years of experience, you are expected to have a low-level design. So this will be focused on a particular feature, like build a search bar of Netflix, stepper component, infinite scrolling feed, Pinterest layout, so all those things. And what happens during the high-level design also, many times interviewers will ask you to focus on LLD of a certain part. So this is also very important to have to know the component design. Today, we will be covering more on the LLD side. So product design, we can cover sometimes else, some other time because it can take more time. It's more high level. So we are going to take this example, autocomplete. So this is a very famous question which was asked in a lot of good companies, Flipkart, Swiggy, many, and even I was asked this question in one of the FANG interviews. So if you are preparing for FANG, that it can be useful to you. So first step is usually you start with clarifying the question. And this is very important because this is also considered negative if you don't clarify the question, that what the question is. You are mostly getting an abstract statement. Like in this question, interviewer will be like, okay, design a type ahead. Now you should ask, okay, if you have the same understanding as the interviewer that you want to build something which on typing should give you results, what is the goal of this feature? Whom you are building it for? Do you want a generic component? So clarify all the questions in 1 minute. Ask them that what is this feature? And if it is like autocomplete, then you should consider that should you consider some typing errors or not? Like in this question, all these are the valid questions. We should you can ask about. Then you can take on the general plan we will be following during the interview is these 6 steps. So first we will go about the requirements, functional and non-functional requirements. You can also club them up in a single requirement, doesn't matter. And then third thing is that component architecture. This is very important. So you design, if you're doing a component design, then you should do a component architecture, discuss the props and events, then discuss about the performance and accessibility. So don't miss even performance and accessibility. It's also marked that person did not talk about accessibility and performance. So first we'll cover the functional requirements. So like we are designing a type ahead, what all functional requirements we can have. The basic requirement somebody can have is like when you type on the input, you should get some results. So this is the main functional requirement. Then you should have like a debouncing when you type, because you don't want to overload your network with a lot of calls. So you want to have debouncing. You also want everything to be customizable. So when we are building something, think that you are building a generic thing so that everyone else can use it. You are not building it for a specific case, right? So you want your search results to be configurable, maybe your input box also to be configurable, and you should support static data and the data coming from an API. So this part you can also ask from the interviewer, that should we support the static data? Where does the data live? Is it on client? Is it on server? So you can ask about that, but basically we'll be covering all these 4 things. Then we go to the non-functional requirements. So non-functional requirements are usually related to sometimes like configurations, that our search results should be configurable. We should have cache size, minimum query length, and it should be performant, accessible. We should support all the devices and all the platforms. So you can also club them into one. That is also fine, because I also, while component design, if there is any specific framework, you can ask the interviewer if you want to go by React, or you can use JavaScript. So it's not important to use a framework. So that's totally up to us. You can use vanilla JS, nobody stops. I use React because I think like it becomes easy for me to explain things in terms of props and functions. So that's why I do that. So I ask the interviewer, can I use React? But most of the times they don't matter. It doesn't matter. They will say, do whatever. We don't want anything. Sorry. So most of the time they will say that it doesn't matter. You can, we don't want to build anything framework specific. Yes. So like result size. So this is basically how many, it's a very good question, because that brings a lot of design change. If you have a lot of results, then you can do pagination, then you can do a lot of things. And especially when you have a lot of data, then interviewer will also dig you into infinite scroll, virtualization, all those concepts. So it's important, you can ask it, but just proceed with the component, ask the questions along. You can clarify some questions upfront like before, but after that, just ask the questions if you want to know what is the size of the result size, because that will change the design. Search results customization part. Okay. Yeah. So by customization, I mean is that like, for example, you're using a design system library, right? And you want that to have your own search component. So you want to pass that, okay, I want to use the search results component of my design system. I don't want to use the library's design system. It will be more clear when we proceed through it, what I mean by the configurations, that it is customizable. So we will see in the next slides. Okay, so now we can talk about the component architecture. So basically, let's open. So this is what we are going to build, right? So when we type on it, maybe like Anjum. So you see, so this is our search result component. This is our input box. And here we have see all results. When you are clicking on see all results, it's taking you to another tab, maybe. Yeah. So this is what we want to build. And what I mean by the search results customizable was that that this component, it can have image on the left, it can have a text, it can have no image, just the text. So all these, so it should be customizable, right? So it's not, you are not building for just one case, you should be flexible to build it for all the cases. Similarly, for the input box also, it can have a search, maybe it has a placeholder, maybe it has like a cross button, so all these things. So that is why when you build, make sure everything is customizable. So now the component architecture is that we have an input box and we have a search, all the search suggestions. And inside the list, we have one suggestion item. And each suggestion item can have a text and an image. Then we will click, like we'll have show more results like we saw. So here the point comes to ask that what if you want like more, there are more results, what you want to do? Right, you can have like a pagination, you want to have infinite scroll. For the simplicity, I'm designing it like that, but there is very likely chance that interviewer will ask you, what if we have more results, like its result list is very long, or how would you handle like the pagination? If you do you will you do the infinite scrolling? If you go through infinite scrolling, how would you do that? So all these questions you can expect, but when you start, you have to lead the interview. So start with the simple. If interviewer wants to know something in particular, he'll take you there. So yeah, so we are just focused, we will be designing it like that. Okay, so the components we discussed is now we are going to discuss the API part. So API is the get suggestions. So we want our client to send request to the server, which is get suggestions. It will give me a list of suggestions, and suggestion list we will be so this is the list, right? And we will just render the list into an each suggestion item. Yeah, so our API, write down the API. This is important. You always write down the API. In the get suggestions, what we will have is the search query. So what user has typed, we will send it to the server. Okay, I want results for AN. Then this you can pass the result count to show that, okay, maximum, I just want to have like 10 results at a time. So this you can pass the result count, and then write the types. What is the request and what is the response is going to be. So we have response is the suggestions array, and that will be a list of suggestion. And each suggestion will have an ID, a text, image, URL. I think this is basic what we want to cover. Yeah. So when you are designing a component, think in like two directions. One is the consumer and the another one is the library. And you have to build a widget in such a way that all your consumers are satisfied. So you have to think first that how consumer is going to use it. For instance, if you are working in a lot of, if you guys are working in the companies, you must be using some design system, right? And you guys would be using the design system components in there. So how design system components are being built that every developer is able to use that, right? So type ahead widget, first we see that how the consumer is going to use that widget. This is only about system design at the moment. So if you have any questions right now for this thing, I'll take up right now. Other questions I can take in the end. Yeah. So in the consumer part, how will you use the autocomplete? So it will be like an autocomplete. Then you pass the props. So props is important. I start with the props, but you can do however you prefer. But then how you're going to use it basically. So you will have a get suggestion. So first thing you need to tell your widget is, okay, this is the suggestion list I want to render. So you will pass the suggestions. Here, instead of the suggestions, I'm passing it a callback, which is taking a query and returning me a promise of suggestions. I'm using it that way. You can also pass the suggestions, but we can, but then if you pass directly the suggestions, then you will need an event so that when user types, it should tell, okay, it should trigger a callback. So basically, get suggestions is getting called when user types on the input. It will call the get suggestion method, which is given by the developer who's using the component. Then render input. So all these are the customizable parts. So now, if I'm using a library, I want to tell library, don't use your component. I also want to give my design system component and use that. So that is why I will give like a function, render input, and give HTML. So this is an optional attribute. You can use, like, this will be an optional thing, but you should consider it as a prop. And similarly, render suggestion, it's also a customizable thing. So you will pass that, and this will return also you an HTML element. Then render loader, loading state will have some minimum length, is the minimum length of the query after which the results should come. We can pass the maximum results, that how many results we want from the API at a time. Debounce delay time, if you want to have a debounce delay of like 300 milliseconds, 500 milliseconds, depending on the use case. Then cache size, cache expiration. Show close button is whether you want to show the close button or not. On close, on clear, close on escape. So all these, they're just like, you can, all these customized things you can think that should be a part of it. So just give as many props you think that it should. Okay, a consumer should be also giving this, like I should also give an option of close on escape. So all these things that a library should consider while building their component, all the use cases. So basically these are all the props. And then show more results is when you are clicking on show more results, what should happen? Should it load more results, or it should redirect to another page? So all these are the props, right? And then we'll have some JS events. So how this is implemented. So if you're building an autocomplete, how will you make it, right? If you will have a search box, and your autocomplete may be some autocomplete function which will have an input and on change. When you are typing, it is hitting an API which will bring results to you. So it will have an on change event, and on the on change event, we will be triggering the event which is passed by the consumer. Similarly, we'll have an on close event that is also passed by the consumer, but you can also have your own close on event as well. In the library can handle its own things as well. If there is no custom render suggestion, the library will have its own suggestion box, right? And on click and on escape, like when you click on escape, then it should be closing or not. This is also a valid thing to talk about. The another thing is the UI states. So we also take care of what will happen if there are no results, if there is an error, or if there is a loading state, null state. So these UI states also talk about that. Okay, you can pass a callback from in as a prop that if there are no more results, then show no more results, callback on error. Like here we can have like an on error, what to do if there is an error. So all these states you can also customize them and pass them as a prop. I think this is a little bit not too complicated, but if anybody has a doubt in this particular thing, you can ask. You can post in the Q&A, or you can also speak if you have any doubts here. So even if you have an LLD question, it's going to be system design. In most of the cases, interviewer doesn't ask you to code or do anything. We don't jump into the live coding questions. So somebody said that Axios have a method to cancel the requests. Yeah, you can even Fetch has a method, abort controller, but there are even better things. You don't need to cancel the APIs always. You can also decide not to show the result and do it like that. Yeah, you can use the abort controller or the Axios API as well. So there is a question, like if there are large number of charts and graphs are used, so rendering on the browser will take time. So yeah, so these things makes more sense to render on the server and then send the rendered thing to the server. But this is not, and were you asking this question in particularly to this problem, or it was a more of a generic question? Karthik, I think Karthik asked. So yes, so in case of heavy libraries, it's always better to get it computed on the server rather than on the client. In terms of DSA style questions while interviewing, so somebody has asked, I have been asked like questions related to DOM tree reversal. So it's not directly, but DOM is a tree, right? It's not directly something somebody told, okay, traverse a tree, but if I'm traversing a DOM, it's an NRE tree. So I think it's important that you should at least know the concepts, everything. So you do the basic data structure, at least till trees. Most of the time in front end, I haven't been asked a lot too much data structure. It has always been focused on the front end part, JS, but the problem solving in JS as well. For instance, having closures, problems, promises, so all those sort of things. Even traversing DOM traversals, cloning the nodes, deep clone, so all so these things. There is a very good website also if you guys want to check that, and that will help with the front end problem solving questions. The website is called Big Front End Dev, so that is a very good website to practice the front end related problems. What should be an ideal approach for creating offline first applications? So I don't know, what do you mean by that? Is like, do you mean to create like a PWAs, or you mean to say that you can have some pre-rendered page from the server and you can do the background syncing so that you store that in the cache? But that is also a PWA kind of. You can use service workers to store the static pages, and so that you can have an offline content instantly. Even if you're offline, you can have something available instantly. Any scenario where you had to traverse the DOM tree in uh, real job? Yeah, if you work on the rich text editor, then you will have to traverse the DOM tree and store it in a JS structure. So you have to do that. I don't say that I have to do it like every day, but these, if you work on like bigger problems, like I was working on some rich text editor, then I had to know the concepts of AST trees, all those things. So it's not something which would come every day, but yeah. The common LLD questions which I have experienced is autocomplete, Pinterest layout, data table, and infinite scrolling is also. I think these are the 4-5 very top hit questions asked in the specifically in the LLD. Yeah, so in terms of designing the LL, if you are asked the high level design, you will follow the same pattern. Like for instance, you will follow the general requirements part, functional, non-functional requirements. You will discuss the component architecture, but in high level design, the component architecture will be very broad. So for instance, if you are designing a WhatsApp, right? So in WhatsApp, it will be the list component as well, the charts, the messages, the chat body, the header where you are sending. So it will be a lot more. So it will, right now we have discussed just designing one component, how our one component is looking, but then you will have like 4-5 components that, okay, this is my list component, this is my chat component, this is my messaging component. So all those things. And similarly, you will still talk about the performance and accessibility. So the pattern stays the same. You can follow the same approach like we did here, but the it will get like broader, more. It's focused on the breadth and than in the depth. So they can ask you to focus on little bit depth of one thing, but they want to cover you to think about how everything is connected, how the components are connected, how the data is flowing through each of the component. So those sort of things, but you can follow the same pattern. So still talk about the accessibility, performance, caching, everything. You still have to talk about it and read about these things like performance, read about the performance, how the performance are optimized. It's also good to read about image optimizations if you are asked any questions related to images. For example, I was asked Pinterest, and in Pinterest, you have to do a lot of image optimizations and like rendering, how sequential rendering, all those things. So read about some images as well. Yeah, for the caching, right now, Ritvik has asked for the caching. Yeah, we stored it like a map. We did that because we can access it in O of 1. If we would have stored everything in like a list, stored all the suggestions instead of like key value, then we would have to traverse through the list, and that would have taken of n time. So I think this is a good way to present it, like to have a key value when you have a search query as a key and all the suggestions in the value. Yeah, so in the cache, you can have something in the memory. You can use the local storage, session storage, index DB. So you can have it anywhere on client. You can have it in any of the 4 places. Redux is not a cache, but Redux is your local state of the application, right? It's a store, so it's a memory. So you can store that in memory. It's same as that. Yeah. So this is a good question which Divyansh has asked, that when we are making a request and receiving response, so when we are caching results, we can also have a lot of results. So how much would be the size of the, we can end up having a huge cache, right? So you will always cache, you can give the size, okay, you want 10 elements, you want 20 elements, and after that you will have to follow the cache eviction policy, because you can't have, like, on the client you can't have, so like 1,000 rows of cache, or you might not want to have such a large cache on the client. So what you need to follow the eviction policy, like LRU, that how you're going to stay, always keep the updated results, and also maybe expire the cache after some time. So you can also choose that. So you might have to keep some like timestamp to also check if the data in the cache is not stale, because maybe you stored the data like 3-4 hours back or 3-4 days back, and now in this cache you can't be relying on the cache, that cache always have an updated result. So you also have to follow that cache should also be updated time to time, and also you will follow the eviction policy like LRU or something to take to update your cache and remove, and to make sure that you have the updated results in the cache. People have asked, like, where is the cache being stored? So you can store it in the memory, or you can store it in the local storage or session storage. All of them works. So Redis is the backend. I think it's more Redis cache. You can't have it on the client. If I'm not sure, I don't know much about it, but I have read somewhere that it's on the backend.
I think Vedant is asking how will you handle fear in the cache?
Yeah, so this is what I said, that how we can simply also expire the entire cache, like cache is equal to blank object also after some time, if like that. Or what we can handle, that we will simply remove the rows after some time. For instance, like you will check whenever you are so when the cache size is increased, like you had 5 rows, right? And now you have a 6th row, and the cache doesn't have much now space. So you will do the, okay, which is the last recently used row, or any sort of things. You will remove that row and insert your own row in that. And you will also keep a timestamp whenever you are getting your data from the cache to see that if it is updated or not. Vedant, does that answer your question? Because we are clearing the cache. Yes, we are not complete. We can be clear. We have to completely clear the cache. Also, we can see that, okay, after a couple of days we can clear, like completely clear the cache, or we can do this LRU approach, that we keep the whenever the cache is full, then we can remove some of the few rows from the cache. And I already answered about updating the cache results, that whenever you are getting, you will first check on your cache, right? You will just check in the cache dot has this query. If the cache results exist, then you will also check, okay, what is the timestamp? So in if that timestamp is longer than 2 hours, so you might need an updation. So you can go to the server and get the latest results. So in this way, you can update the cache. Okay, thank you everyone. I hope this was useful. I will share the link of this board so that you can go through each of it. Like
we are done with the questions, and that brings us to the end of this wonderful session. I would like to thank each one of you for joining us. Hope you learned something really new and insightful from today's session. We will look forward for your post on LinkedIn along with your key learnings. Don't forget to tag Recro, tag Ashma, tag me in your post, and let us know what was something that you learned and your takeaways from this session today. And also, thank you so much, Ashma, for joining us, for taking your time from your busy schedule. And it was awesome having you. Thank you for just giving us such a wonderful session. So before we end this session, we have some few announcements to make. We have created a community for developers called Recro Tech Circle, wherein you can connect with fellow developers, get career opportunities, ask for help. The link to join is in the chat. You can just quickly go in the chat, join the community, and take the help of the fellow developers, leverage the community features. And if you have any ideas or anything that you want to learn for our future sessions, let us know. and we'll be more glad to have speakers like Ashma coming over and taking the sessions for you. We have made a LinkedIn post about this session. Do comment your learnings in this post, and the link of the post is in the comment. So please do go there and let us know your insights and your takeaways from the session. If you have more questions, you can connect with Ashma on LinkedIn. She'll be more than happy to connect with you personally if you have any doubts on this session or anything related to the front-end system design. And she's also a content creator herself, and you can also follow her on LinkedIn and Twitter. So she'll be keeping more content out. If you're exploring career opportunities, Recro is hiring passionate developers. You can just go out and check if you want any openings out there. Maybe you can refer a friend or see something for yourself if you want. I think we'll be more than happy to get you placed with the top A-grade startups of the country. And to follow such events, you can follow us on social media. You can stay updated, and you can access to all the previous webinars or the one that are coming in the future. So do follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And that's all for the session, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Hope to see you in the next one. Take care, stay safe. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ashwa.